Today our topic of discussion is the parietal bone. This is anterior, this is posterior. Now these parietal bones, as you can see, these are curved, flat, quadrilateral shaped bones. So these parietal bones, these are paired bones. It forms a part of the roof and the side of the skull. So this is the parietal bone of the right side. So the features of this bone, it has an external surface, it has an internal surface, it has a superior border, inferior border, anterior border, posterior border, and it has four angles: antero-superior angle, also known as the frontal angle; antero-inferior angle, also known as the sphenoidal angle; posterior-superior angle or the occipital angle, and the posterior-inferior angle or the mastoid angle. So what are the parts of the parietal bone? The parietal bone, it has two surfaces, the external and the internal. It has four borders: the anterior border, posterior border, superior and inferior borders, and it has four angles: antero-superior, antero-inferior, posterior-superior, posterior-inferior. The features on the external surface of the parietal bone, it includes an elevation, the parietal tuber or tuberosity, the superior and inferior temporal lines, and the parietal foramen. The inferior temporal line and the area of the bone below it, it forms the major part of the floor of the temporal fossa. The temporal fossa, it gives origin to the muscle known as temporalis. So in this individual parietal bone of the right side, the features which we can see are the temporal lines, the superior and the inferior temporal lines, and we can see the parietal tuber or the parietal eminence. Over here the parietal foramen is a very small one, so we can see along the posterior part of the superior border, this is the parietal foramen. So here we can see this is the parietal bone, and we can see the two temporal lines. This is the superior temporal line and this is the inferior temporal line. The area of the bone below the inferior temporal line, this area, it forms the floor of the temporal fossa. This temporal fossa gives origin to the muscle that is the temporalis, which is a muscle of mastication, that it helps us in chewing. And this muscle will be covered by the temporal fascia. This temporal fascia, above it gains attachment to the superior temporal line, and below it is attached to this upper margin of this zygomatic process. Now the rest of this bone, parietal bone, over here it will be covered by the layer of the scalp which is known as the epicranial aponeurosis. This epicranial aponeurosis will be attached to the superior temporal line, and then it goes further downwards external to the temporal fascia, and then it gains attachment to the upper border of the zygomatic process. So from outside inwards, we have the epicranial aponeurosis, and inner to that we will have the temporal fascia with the temporalis muscle. This is the sagittal suture, this is the lambdoid suture, and you know that this is the region of the lambda. Now close to the posterior part of the superior border of this parietal bone, we can see there is one small opening. This is the parietal foramen. It allows the passage of the emissary vein which connects the superior sagittal sinus with the veins of the scalp, and also the meningeal branch from the occipital artery. Now this is the parietal tuber or eminence. What is the importance of this parietal tuberosity or eminence? First, the ossification of the bone, it starts from this region. Next, it forms an important landmark for surface anatomy. Also, it helps in measuring the biparietal diameter. And an important area of the brain is located beneath the parietal tuberosity. And in case of right-handed individuals, we have the Wernicke sensory speech area located in the left cerebral hemisphere beneath the parietal tuberosity. Now let us learn about the articulation of this parietal bone. This parietal bone, it belongs to the right side. It has this anterior border, posterior border, this is the superior border, and this is the inferior border. This inferior border, you can see, is beveled. That is, the outer table, inner table are not present at the same level. So this is the inferior border. This is the superior border. You can see the margin is serrated this serrated margin, it will articulate with the parietal bone of the opposite side to form the sagittal suture. Now the parietal bones articulates with the posterior margin of the squamous part of the frontal bone. This is the frontal bone. This is the posterior border of the frontal bone. So the two parietal bones, they articulate with the posterior margin of the frontal bone and will form the coronal suture. Like this. So this, the meeting point of the sagittal suture with this coronal suture, you all know this region is the bregma. So this angle, this is known as the antero-superior angle. This is also known as the frontal angle. This is the occipital bone with its foramen magnum. Now this part is the squamous part of the occipital bone. This squamous part of the occipital bone, it has a superior angle and it has two superolateral borders. So the superolateral margins of the squamous part of the occipital bone will articulate with the posterior margin of the parietal bone and will form the lambdoid suture. And this angle behind the meeting point of the sagittal suture with the lambdoid suture will be the region of the lambda. Now let us learn about the articulations of the inferior border. So this is the inferior border. So over here we have reconstructed the articulation of the inferior border. We can see over here we have the sphenoid. This is the tip of the crater wing of the sphenoid. This is the squamous part of the temporal bone. This is the mastoid part of the temporal bone. This is the antero-inferior angle, and over here now the frontal bone will come from in front for articulation like this. So over here we can see that there is an H-shaped suture at the antero-inferior angle. This H-shaped suture, so over here from in front we have the frontal bone, from above the parietal bone, from behind the temporal bone, and from below we have the sphenoidal bone. So antero-inferior angle is also known as the sphenoidal angle. This antero-superior angle, because it is the meeting point of the two parietal bones and the frontal bone, it is known as the frontal angle. Now let us learn the articulations of the posterior-superior angle. Here the posterior-superior angle, you all know, is the meeting point of the sagittal suture with the lambdoid suture. The two parietal bones are articulating with the occipital bone. So the posterior-superior angle is also known as the occipital angle. Come to the posterior-inferior angle. This posterior-inferior angle over here, it is meeting the occipital bone and the mastoid part of the temporal bone. So this angle, posterior-inferior angle, is also known as the mastoid angle. So we have four angles. We have the antero-superior angle or the frontal angle, the posterior-superior angle or the occipital angle. This is the antero-superior angle is the region of the bregma. Posterior-superior angle is the region of the lambda. Antero-inferior angle over here is also known as the sphenoidal angle. It is the region known as the pterion. And this posterior-inferior angle, also known as the mastoid angle, this is known as the asterion, as you can see from the diagram. Now let us learn about the internal surface. As you can see, the internal surface is uneven because of the impressions of the cerebral convolutions, that is the gyri, and it has a number of grooves present. These are the grooves, and these grooves are formed by the middle meningeal vessels. See, this one is running from the antero-inferior angle upwards and backwards. This is because of the anterior division of the middle meningeal vessels, and from the posterior part of the inferior border going upwards is the posterior division of the middle meningeal vessels, and the grooves are much more deep because of the veins than that because of the artery. Now along the superior border over here you can see a deep sulcus. This sulcus is going to form a complete sulcus, that is the sagittal sulcus, when it articulates with the opposite parietal bone. Now as you can see, this is the vault of the skull. This is the frontal bone over here, and this is the occipital bone. It was behind, so vault of the skull has been removed. You can always understand which is anterior posterior by seeing the vault, because the anterior end is narrow compared to the posterior end, that is the biparietal diameter, which will be much more larger. So it is actually the vault of the skull. From above it will be oval shaped. So this is anterior, this is posterior. This is the sagittal suture, and this sagittal suture, when you look at it from the inner aspect, you can see that there is a deep groove running on the inner aspect of this sagittal suture. This groove is known as the sagittal sulcus. This sagittal sulcus is formed along the inner aspect of the superior border. So this margins of the sagittal sulcus, it gives attachment to a dural fold, that is the falx cerebri, and this sagittal sulcus, it will lodge the venous sinus, that is the superior sagittal sinus. This superior sagittal sinus is a dural venous sinus, and along with other venous sinuses, they help to drain the blood from the brain and also from the meninges, bones, also from the orbit and the ear. Now let us discuss a few words about the meninges and the dural folds, dural venous sinuses. Now the brain and the spinal cord are covered by the protective coverings known as the meninges. The meninges consist of three layers. From outside inwards we have the dura mater, the arachnoid mater and the pia mater. Now this dura mater covering the brain is known as the cranial dura, and that which surrounds the spinal cord is known as the spinal dura. Now the cranial dura, it consists of two layers. One is the outer endosteal layer, the other is the inner meningeal layer. And this endosteal layer is firmly connected or attached to the inner surface of the bone, and it forms the periosteum covering its inner surface. As we have already learned, it is known as the endocranium. The meningeal layer of the dura mater, on the other hand, it divides the cranial cavity into compartments. Now when we open the vault of the skull, we can see this sickle-shaped fold of dura mater. This is the falx cerebri. This falx cerebri is vertically oriented, and it lies between the two cerebral hemispheres. So on either side, we'll have the two cerebral hemispheres. This falx cerebri, it rests on a horizontal fold of dura mater. This horizontal fold is the tentorium cerebelli. Where the falx cerebri meets the tentorium cerebelli, these blue markings are dural venous sinuses. So this tentorium cerebelli is actually so named because it forms the tent of the cerebellum. So it is positioned like this. This tentorium cerebelli, it forms the roof of the posterior cranial fossa. As you can see, the interior of the skull, it is in the form of three steps, three descending steps. This anterior part, this is the anterior cranial fossa. The middle cranial fossa, this portion is a bit deeper, and this is the posterior cranial fossa, which is the deepest. So in this posterior cranial fossa will lodge the cerebellum, and the roof of this cerebellum will be formed by the tentorium cerebelli, like this. Below that we have another fold of dura mater. This is known as the falx cerebelli. So this falx cerebelli is present in between the two cerebellar hemispheres. And the fourth one is the diaphragm ocelli, which forms the roof of the pituitary fossa. So this is the orientation of the dural folds. So we have falx cerebri, falx cerebelli, this one, and this is the tentorium cerebelli. And over here we can see this blue markings. This is the dural venous sinus. This is the superior sagittal sinus. This falx cerebri, it has an attached margin and a free margin. This attached margin will be attached to the margins of this As you can see, we had this sagittal sulcus. So this margins of the sagittal sulcus will give attachment to the falx cerebri. So the falx cerebri will be attached like this. So along the attached margin of the falx cerebri, it runs the dural venous sinus, that is the superior sagittal sinus. So this along the attached margin over here, we have the superior sagittal sinus. This below that is the inferior sagittal sinus. In old age, a number of granular pits are observed by the sides of the superior sagittal sulcus. These pits lodge the arachnoid granulations. Arachnoid granulations are finger-like processes which help in the absorption of the cerebrospinal fluid into the superior sagittal sinus. This is the coronal section through the superior sagittal sinus. Here we can see the two parietal bones which are united at the sagittal suture. Beneath that, this green color structure is the dura mater. Now this layer of the dura mater, which is firmly attached to the undersurface of the bone, is the endosteal layer. This one, on the other hand, which has got separated from the endosteal layer, is the meningeal layer. And this meningeal layer is forming the falx cerebri. This yellow color structure is the convolutions of the brain covered by the pia mater. So in between the endosteal and meningeal layer of the dura mater, we have the superior sagittal sinus, that is the dural venous sinus. And this venous sinus, we can see, is connected by means of the emissary veins. These emissary veins are connecting the dural venous sinus, intracranial sinus with the extracranial veins, and thus helping to maintain the intracranial pressure. This purple color area over here is the subarachnoid space. The subarachnoid space is between the arachnoid and the pia mater, and it contains the CSF or the cerebrospinal fluid. Here, these projections, these other finger-like projections are the arachnoid granulations. These arachnoid granulations are structures through which the CSF will be transported back into the superior sagittal sinus. The inner surface of the mastoid angle or the posterior-inferior angle is marked by a deep groove which lodges the sigmoid sinus, which is another one of the dural venous sinuses. We have already seen that the antero-inferior angle, over here we had the anterior division of the middle meningeal vessels, and along the superior border we have the superior sagittal sinuses. Therefore it is said that the four angles are vascular. So we have the superior sagittal sinus along the antero-superior and the posterior-superior angles. Along the antero-inferior angle we have the anterior division of the middle meningeal vessels, and the posterior-inferior angle we have the sigmoid sinus. Therefore, the four angles are vascular. The ossification of the parietal bone is very important. The ossification, it starts in the region of the parietal tuber or eminence at the 7th week of intrauterine life. Two primary centers of ossification appear from here, and it spreads like the spokes of a wheel centrifugally, so that the margins of the bone, it gets ossified earlier compared to the four angles. So this bone, it gets ossified except for the four angles which remain as unossified membranous gaps. These unossified membranous gaps are known as the fontanelles in fetal skull. This is a view of the vault of the fetal skull. In the region of the bregma, we can see a diamond-shaped unossified membranous gap. This is the anterior fontanelle. Behind that, in the region of the lambda, we have the posterior fontanelle. In the regions of the antero-inferior angle of the parietal bone, we will have the paired anterolateral fontanelles. In the region of the posterior-inferior angles, we will have the posterolateral fontanelles. So in the fetal skull, altogether, we will have 6 fontanelles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now all these fontanelles usually close by 3 to 4 months after birth, except the anterior fontanelle, which will close after 1.5 to 2 years. Now, in order to hold the bone in anatomical position, you have to look for the longest serrated border. It should be upwards in the median plane. Then look for the antero-inferior angle. It will be the projecting angle, the projecting part, and it should be held by the thumb and the index finger, and it should be downwards and forwards. And the external surface, the smooth convex surface, it will determine the side of the bone. So this bone, we can see, this is the superior border, This is the antero-inferior angle and this is the external surface. So we are holding it by the antero-inferior angle like this. So this is the parietal bone of the right side. Take this bone. We will look for the serrated border. So this is the serrated border and this is the beveled border. So this is the superior border, this is the inferior border. So this superior border should be upwards. This is the external surface. Now we have to look for the antero-inferior angle. So this is the most projecting point. So this has to be the antero-inferior angle. So hold the parietal bone by the antero-inferior angle, place the serrated border upwards in the median plane, and so this is the parietal bone of the left side.